really excited about today's episode because this special guest is someone we actually met in real life, which I feel like is a rare thing for us because Katie and I don't even live near each other.
She came up to us in an elevator.
Yes. I had no friends. And you both were so nice to me.
Yeah. Well, we just could feel the great aura coming off of you. Otherwise, we would have been total biatches. So
yeah, that's our typical MO is to be mean to people. So
we're as mean as possible normally. Yeah, but you got the lucky royal treatment.
You both were so kind, and then we hung out all Adobe Max together. It was great.
It was great.
You saw me at my hangriest.
Oh my gosh, waiting for food delivery in the hotel lobby. We were there for like hours.
I give Adobe Max a 10 out of 10 for fun and education. I give it a 0 out of 10 for food for people who are gluten-free.
Which is kind of crazy in this day and age.
Yeah, hipsters love gluten-free stuff.
And in LA?
Graphic designers.
Yeah, come on, get with it, people. Get on the gluten-free train.
I will say, I did get introduced to Kind bars in the brown wrapper. I don't know how else to describe it because I don't know the name. They're great. They're fantastic.
I don't think I've had them.
How are they different than other Kind bars?
Just, they all have a flavor. Like some might be, I'm just making these up on the spot. I could Google it, but some might be like almond and sea salt. And whatever this particular one was, in the brown, in the tan, in the beige, Pantone 283, I don't know. It was really good. And I don't think it was because I was just really hungry because I have had them since and I still think they're really good.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. The brown wrapper Kind bars.
This episode is brought to you by Kind bars.
I have the protein breakfast Kind bars a lot of mornings. It's delish.
Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you.
Well, that's how we met today's guest. And I'd love to do a quick intro so that people listening will know who you are.
Yeah.
Great.
Take it away.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Casey, and my main job, I design book covers for young adult books, so teens. I work at Penguin Random House in the Random House Children's Books division. And then I also do some lettering, illustration, freelance work in my spare time. But that's what I do.
It's so cool. Such a dream job. I bet everybody who's listening right now is like, oh, how do you do that? Tell us, how did you get to there?
It's such like a niche job that I don't think a lot of people think of as being like a real job that you can do. But like, there's so many books everywhere. So for the longest time, like I was always a reader when I was younger. And then I kind of stopped reading in high school. Like Twilight was the last thing I read. And then I got back into reading in college because I had a unique college experience. I didn't go to art school, but I played a Division I sport in college. So I played softball. We were always traveling everywhere for games. And I was majoring in design. My homework would be like, I'd like watercolor homework or using the pen tool on the trackpad on my laptop. And everybody else was like reading and writing papers. So I like got back into reading because we were just we were like in the airport on the bus all the time. And I was having the kind of like senior year panic of what am I going to do? And I graduated in like 2015. So this was like peak Facebook era. And all of our professors were like, you're probably going to work in doing Facebook ads for like whatever brand. And I was like, I do not want to do that. So I was reading books all the time. And I had this moment of like, oh, like someone made this book cover. Someone did this. So then I started looking like, the info is usually on the back cover or somewhere on the jacket, like who the designer is, who the artist is. So I just started like researching with the little information that was out there at the time. What is book publishing? Is this a job? How can I do this? And like I found out most of the bigger publishers are all based in New York. And then I went from there was game plan, like how do I get to New York City? I need to work at a publisher. Like this is what I want to do. And then I was so delusional about it. That's like when people are like, how'd you do it? That when people say like be delusional, I was so delusional. When anybody was like, what are you doing after you graduate? I was like, I'm going to New York City and I'm going to design book covers. I would tell everybody that. I feel like I spoke it into existence. But yeah, that's like kind of how I came to it. And I did have to like do the thing of take a gap year. And I went back home and I like waitressed and stuff for like a year and saved up money to eventually make it to New York and apply to jobs. And I was very lucky that I did land my dream job. I've been at Random House for 8 years and I started out assisting the creative director of the whole children's group. So I got to like look at everything and learn so much right from the jump. That's
love
how
it.
I got
I'm
here.
picturing you getting off the bus in New York, like Thoroughly Modern Millie, with like a suitcase in both hands, and then you start singing as soon as you set foot there.
You wrote your
I
own
wish I
little
actually, so
musical.
I was actually couldn't afford to live in New York, so I lived in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So like much less glamorous.
Okay, so the bus in New Jersey, but still the singing,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
It's so funny. You kind of laughed at yourself a couple times with New Jersey and the gap year. And it's so silly because what a blessing, I guess. I can't think of like a better word to be able to take a gap year because what did
Absolutely.
you say, 2008?
I graduated in 2015.
2015.
I did a couple things in that year, but yeah, I was so lucky that my parents were like, you
Yeah.
can come back here for a year.
Because like when you get out of school, you could not be less prepared for the real world. Like,
Oh my God,
oh
no.
my gosh. And Katie and I were a couple years older, but we were like fed this idea and we went to design school. We were like in the circuit and they were like, you're going to a big city and you're going to work for an agency. And the fact that you were able to kind of find that as your actual dream, whereas like a lot of people think that's what they're supposed to do and it's not what they want. So it's really interesting that you were able to find that all on your own. And correct me if I'm wrong, you said you majored in design, but you didn't go to art school, or am I making it up?
So I went to Seton Hall University, which is a good school. I want to say there was like 10 kids in my program. Like it was it was a really small program. And it was a lot more geared towards like, they didn't have a school of the arts at the time. It was like under science. And yeah, it was just a really small school. They have a huge like business school. So a lot of people don't go there for design specifically.
Sure,
but you know, like I lucked out that they like had a small, but when people are like, what art school did you go to? And I'm like, I did not go to an art school.
You did. You went to school for art. I feel like.
Yeah. I have a bachelor's degree in graphic interactive advertising design. Because that's what they call it.
What is with people
Ooh,
in the
mouthful.
making? Yeah. What are people making all these stupid titles up? I feel like I shouldn't say stupid. But
like, what does that mean? So I'm like, it's graphic design.
Yeah. When I worked as an art director, I was like a digital marketing director. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean?
What is that?
It means you're the art director. Just call it what everyone else in the world calls it. Okay.
Yeah.
So
but
anyway.
while we're on the topic of art school and degrees, one thing that I've noticed, and maybe you've seen this too, that I think is so cool is a lot of jobs are even dropping like a bachelor's degree requirement for creative jobs, which I think is so
That's
wonderful.
awesome.
I don't think you need to go to like a 4-year fancy art school, or even a 2-year program is amazing. Or like so many people are self-taught. Like you can pick up if you majored in something else, or you can go to school and then you're like, I want to do something creative. If you want to learn a skill, you can. The information is out there somewhere on the internet. It's just something I think is so cool. A trend we're moving towards.
I agree. And I really loved my college experience, like much preferred it to high school. But I don't feel like I couldn't have done what I'm doing now without it. But I do think like I learned a lot of life skills, relationship skills. Like I met humans.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest part in my college career, was outside of like the people that you'd known your whole life. Well, if you stayed in the same city for a while, just branching out was really the most important thing for me.
Even just like getting to know yourself better. Like you do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Figuring out what you like, what you don't like, and the opportunity to try things and kind of figure out what you're good at. But yeah.
It would be cool if we could do that without spending all the money.
Getting into so much debt.
Can we like start a free, just like people go in the same place and live, but we don't have to pay $40,000 to do that? You think? Okay.
Yeah, sounds great.
That like sense of community of your peers. Yeah.
And not having your parents around is helpful. Well, Mom, Dad, get out of here.
Yeah, we just took a little time warp there. Remember those days? Wow, that was great. Well, I do love what you do. We're on the book talk side of things. I want to talk about this in a second. But something I wanted to bring up has now left my brain hole again.
Oh, yay.
So
this has to happen at least once an episode. Once an epi.
At least once an epi, I lose my train of thought. So that's it.
Let's talk about, okay, book talk. What does a day in the life of you in your job look like? Tell the people what they want to hear.
Ooh, okay. So
describe it in detail, and I'll do ASMR with my nail in the background.
Perfect. So the cool thing is,
I know it didn't come across at all.
I heard it.
Yeah, if you
I heard your little tap
into the speaker, you got to do it like on the mic.
Yeah, no. Let's just do it like sans. Okay, no ASMR. Just tell us regular style.
This episode is by far the most unhinged so far.
I think it's rather hinged.
I like it. Yeah,
I like it too.
I like the authenticity of it all.
Thanks. Yeah, that's what we were going for.
A day in what I do. My favorite thing is that it's like different every day because I'm very lucky so I only work on young adult books, but it's like all genres of young adult books. So like I'll be working on at the same time the most adorable romance book and then like some unhinged murder thriller or like a fantasy book with dragons and stuff. So it's nice because I never feel like I'm working on the same project. Day to day, I'll be, if we're just starting things, I'm reading the manuscript, like going through, I work really closely with the editors of the books. So they'll provide almost like a brief of like, here's all the most important information. Also things sales related, like here's what this book's going to compete with, what other things it's like. So I'm reviewing all of that and brainstorming concepts and researching artists that we could hire. And then it's a lot of putting together decks for like meetings to pitch, the concept or artists that we want to go for, meeting with the editors, meeting with sometimes if it's like a bigger book, we'll have to like present to the sales and marketing and publicity teams to get their buy-in on something early, before we go spend all the money and then they hate the cover or something. And then also the like really technical designs of laying out the full jacket, doing color correction and ordering proofs. And then it's a lot of art direction too. When I hire different illustrators and stuff, going back and forth on notes and revisions until we get to where we want to be. So it's a lot of different things day to day, depending.
Is there like a list or questions you ask yourself when you're not going to design the cover and you need to hire it out? Because I would imagine when you first started, you're like, I want to get my hands on everything. And obviously that's like not possible. Do you get to pick and choose which ones you get to illustrate and work on? Or do you have your hand in all of them? Or how do you decide, I think we need to hire this one out?
Yes. So the thing about I have only really illustrated a few covers I've worked on when it's worked out that way. So that's never my go-to is that I'm going to be creating the actual art for this because, it's we all have a specific style that doesn't match the needs of every book. I do a lot of hand lettering though. That's kind of my personal touch on a lot of things, but I have the resources to hire somebody who specializes in something so specific that most of the time that's what I'm going to first before, because I don't have all the skills to do all these amazing covers that everybody sees on all of these books. So it's you like to go to the person who is an expert at the thing, but I do the conceiving of what could this thing be. It's a lot of art directing.
That makes sense. And I feel like you'd be really crazy an artist to be able to do a dragon one day and then to do a romance. It just wouldn't really make sense. It is
the range.
The range would be so epic. And I have a Kindle Unlimited. And I do feel like whoever works for Kindle Unlimited, there's 4 artists and they keep popping up because almost all the covers look the same. And I think they're running things differently than you're running it over there.
Yeah. So the thing about Kindle Unlimited, it's a lot of indie authors that self-publish on that platform because, right, especially if it's just an ebook original, because it's the production cost to put a book in print, especially now, with paper costs, it's so high. So a lot of authors, then they also don't have quite the budget that say a big 5 publishing house has to put a cover on a book. So I would say it's more limited resources where there are a few really popular artists and designers that work mostly with indie authors, but it's such a specific market too, where it's you don't want to deviate too much from if all of your readers are on Kindle Unlimited and your cover looks like the 5 most popular books, those readers are also going to be recommended your book. So I think that's part of the game plan there too.
So what did your portfolio look like to get this job? Or like what kind of things should people be preparing if they want to try and be in your sort of position?
So looking back, my portfolio was horrible. But yeah, that's the thing about like portfolios, they grow with you. So I may have found mine while I was cleaning last year and was like, oh, I
love that. You're like, oh my, I made choices.
So everybody, the portfolio was not great, but I've made it here. But the things that I had in my portfolio, because I knew like end of junior year, beginning of senior year that I wanted to work with books, I was able to take advantage of that time and those class projects to gear everything towards that specifically. So most of my projects were book related. So I was able to do an independent study, which I recommend if you're in a program that allows you to do that and you want to work on books. I did a semester of just designing book covers. So I had a ton of that in my portfolio. And you can redo a classic book that already exists, like your interpretation of it. You can make it up completely. You could do your recent favorite. Like there's all this exists, like the material is there for you. And you can go into bookstores and look at what are all the different elements that make up a book cover. And you can kind of replicate that and just look at all this existing cool book cover stuff that's already out there. So yeah, I would say gear it towards, but that's like anything you want to do, right? You want your portfolio to be filled with the work you want to be paid to do, not, like I didn't have any logo designs in my portfolio because I don't like to do them. And it's never something that I want to do. I took the time to really make sure it was geared towards book design specifically.
Well, it sounds like that really worked out in your favor. You got the job.
I got it. I'm here.
Yeah, thoroughly modern Millie style. I'm just picturing you with tap shoes and the whole 9 yards. So when you are concepting for a cover, what goes through your mind? You have the brief, you have the manuscript. Where do you go from there? It's a big thing to kind of wrap your brain around.
Yes. So I always like to read the books. So I'm like interpreting things from, designer visual brain, where sometimes obviously the author has read their own book and the editor who bought it. But like sometimes I'll see something that they don't necessarily see where I'm like, that could be such a cool visual. And I'll start there. But the editors also will pass along, like any ideas they have, anything that the author specifically like, even if it's just they really like this art style, or here's like 3 covers that they really love. So I take all of that because we like to have tons of options, right? So I usually try to have like at least 3. But yeah, that's how we started out.
Do you have to sketch the concept, or is it more like describe what it would look like and then storyboard the artist that you're thinking of and they could kind of pick from that style?
So I do little garbage thumbnails because that's how my brain works. So even like as I'm reading, I have like on my iPad, I have like a template of, it's got like 8 little book covers on it. So I'm like doodling things on there. And I also, like try to work out some titles are 1 word and some have 10 words in them. So It's like that I do up front too. It's like, what is the composition of this going to look like with the title? And I like work all of that out, kind of sketching thumbnails. And then I'll like hand the most awful garbage little thumbnail with stick figures to an artist and be like, here's the concept.
Right.
That's do your thing.
Provide my work to Katie. I'm like, you get this, right? It's literally like chicken scratch. And she's like, I totally see it. I'm like, okay, yeah. God bless.
And some people get, like, they can get that. Sometimes we have to do kind of like more thorough mocking up with like stock art or stock photos for concepts. But we also always, like, if I'm pitching an artist, I've pulled samples from their portfolio to be like, this is what their final art execution looks like. And kind of here's the concept. And we're going to hopefully let them do the thing that they're good at to do this cover.
And when you're doing the research of like, here's other competitive books in the space, are you trying to make those covers look like they fit with them, or are you trying to make it stand out? What do you glean from the competition research?
So I think creative people would always say, make it stand out and be different. Numbers people would be like, make it look like this thing that's already super successful and sells really well. And that's the thing about, like being a creative in corporate America, where it's like you always have the creative people working with the numbers people, and you kind of have to like come to an agreement on something. Sometimes they get on board with something that's risky and different and it pays off. sometimes we kind of have to stay in line with what's working, even though it's kind of like against every fiber of our soul to not do something more outside of the box. But you can always make it like you add a uniqueness to everything. But it's hard sometimes.
I think it was one of my favorite books of last year, and I can't even remember the title. I think it was Meet Me at the Lake. I think you said you had read it too, that she has like 3, I can't remember her name, but they're
like painterly covers.
Yes, exactly. And her 3 books are not related. They're just all in like her similar writing style. Obviously that makes sense, but they're all sort of like one chapter is present, one chapter is past, I think. And all 3 books have similar style covers, but I'm like, I like it. They're very pretty. And to me, they were memorable because I really enjoyed the book. So I like can see that they are all from her. Like I saw the new one. I was like, oh, that must be from the same person. But I'm like, what if she does another book? Is she getting too pigeonholed? And what if it's like a little bit different? I don't know. It's just something I'm sure that comes up in conversation all the time. And I'm curious.
It does.
Can you read a book now without being like, this cover, man? Whoa. Like, do you just see it when you're in it? You're like, it would have been so much better if they did this.
I try not to think like that because a lot of times, like when I'm reading for fun, I'm like trying to not think about work, which is hard because it's like reading's one of my biggest hobbies. And then also being a cover designer is so like entrenched in everything I do. I like try not to think of that. Also, like a lot of times books I'm picking up is because I like the cover already. The cover draws you in. That's like kind of the first thing that makes you want to read a book before you even know what it's about.
100%.
So I'm definitely like that, but yeah.
Is that how you pick your books? You go through an actual bookstore and look at covers, or because I'm a Goodreads gal, I want to see like all the reviews, and it takes me forever to choose the next book I'm going to read.
I'm very much on the bookish sides of TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
So I see things all the time like cover reveals, and all my friends on the internet are like, here's book recommendations. So I'm like seeing a lot of new things all the time. So that's like where I get most of my recommendations. I'll go look at reviews and stuff after I read something. I usually won't do it beforehand because like if I loved a book, I'm going to see if other people loved it. But if I didn't like a book, I'm like, what are all the 1-star reviews?
I actually usually don't know what my cover looks like, and I don't even read the synopsis beforehand because...
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
I know.
That makes me so stressed out.
I got a Kindle. I mean, I had one like years ago, and then it was so old that it like wouldn't even charge. I just recently got a new one. I never remember what the cover looks like because I just see it and I open it. It's usually fed to me from like, we think you'll like this based on what you read. And I use Libby to rent books from the library. And I use Goodreads.
I love Libby.
Amazon Unlimited and Kindle Unlimited. And so they're just kind of feeding me things I know I'll like. And so I kind of just take it.
So the algorithm is where you get your book.
See, I'm so particular that a lot of the recommendations I'm like, ugh, no, I hated it. And so I have to really research. And it's so funny because I have such low expectations for TV. I'll watch any kind of trash. But when it comes to books, I'm like, it has to be amazing or I'm really pissed off that I spent my time on it. And I don't know why I have that difference of thought, books versus TV, but
that's flip-flop for us. Casey, what about you? Do you
have
high expectations of TV?
I really struggle to watch new TV, especially in 2024, everything gets canceled after one season. So I find it really hard to get into new TV shows unless there's like 3 seasons out already. So I'm like a chronic rewatcher. I just finished like Buffy. I just watched all of Buffy. I'm rewatching New Girl right now. So I'm much more open with books than I am with
That's
TV.
So interesting that somehow I am backwards. But yeah, I'm a big like sci-fi kind of gal. Most of what I like is brain bender, like whoa, I can't believe that, and time travel and like all that kind of like space operas. I love any of that kind of stuff.
Space opera? Wow.
Yeah, that's a genre. It's so epic. It's like a whole universe instead of just like a small story. Yeah, it's really cool. Casey, what's your genre, your like dream genre of choice?
To read or like design for?
Both. Give each.
I do really like reading romance books, like contemporary romance. I love. And then like YA, I like adult romance. YA, I kind of read everything. I love thrillers. I love fantasy. I'll pretty much read anything. If somebody like recommends it or it sounds really good, I'm pretty open to everything.
So you're not very judgmental.
Like me.
Yeah. So you're not.
I'm a total book dick. I'm a book dick.
I read so much. I read like 150 books a year.
That's a lot.
Also, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. Like while designing, I can kind of like focus on both if I'm not reading or writing emails. So I just consume a lot of books. So I guess like I run out of things in like
what's your...
I'm like, there's nothing new I want to read.
To use the TikTok language, the book talk language, what's your God tier books?
What?
God tier. That's what people on Book Talk say, that when like nobody can touch them, they're perfect as is and they need no changes.
I have so many favorite. I have like a lot of favorite authors. I love everything that they have written. My favorite book series of all time is called A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. It's 4 books, and it's like the descendants of Sherlock Holmes and Watson.
Ooh.
It's a boy and a girl. They go to a boarding school together and solve mysteries.
Aww.
I'm not even like a Sherlock Holmes fan, but it's like the most delightful, but like also like there are some more serious parts. Like I'm rereading them all the time. Like I have them on ebook, audiobook, paperback, hardcover. It's my favorite. It's like my comfort YA series that I love more than everybody else. And when people are like, I read it and I didn't like it, I'm like, we can't be friends.
I'm going to read it and I'm going to love it.
It's fun.
Deciding now. Yeah, it sounds like a good old romp. Okay, so I would be amiss if I didn't ask on behalf of our listeners who want to be the designers that people like you are hiring for book covers. How do you find them? How do you go out looking? What should they have in their portfolio? Give us all the behind the scenes intel.
Okay, so the number one place that I'm looking for artists is on Instagram, because it's like I'm always searching weird hashtags, or like if they did another piece of art or something I came across. Like I follow so many different artists and I'm always looking at like who they follow and are friends with. And like you can easily save things on Instagram. So I'll like see cool things. I'll be like, they would probably be really great for a fantasy book cover. And I'll like save a piece of their work to come back to when I have like a fantasy book cover that I'm looking for an artist for. So Instagram, I would say, is the number one place. I don't care how many likes or followers you have. It literally doesn't matter. If your art is cool, I'm saving it. So on the kind of opposite side of that, we also work with a lot of agencies. I'm always like kind of going through, I have like a bunch of different agencies bookmarked, and I'll like go through and look there sometimes. But it's kind of so like we hire tons of unagented artists. So like it doesn't really matter if you have an agent or not. And for what I work on specifically, I'm always looking for adorable characters that aren't just standing there, like some kind of dynamic interaction between like chemistry between two characters. So I'm looking for that in a lot of people's work. We also do a lot of head and shoulder portraits that are really beautiful. So I look for that. Hand lettering, huge plus, especially if you can do like illustrate like a scene or characters and also do really cool lettering that's like incorporated. I think that's a huge plus. Yeah, and just like unique color palettes. There's definitely like a quote, I hate the word commercial, but there's definitely a certain style to like YA romance and adult romance right now. But I'm always looking for things that just feel like a little more unique too. But Instagram's usually where I'm at.
What about Pinterest? Do you ever go on there?
I find it hard to find the source because a lot of people are like reposting other people's work there. And I feel like Instagram is a lot easier to be like the artists themselves posted this, or like their friend reposted their post and you can find the original person. And Pinterest, I don't know, the algorithm, I feel like I do mood boards from Pinterest, but I don't really find a lot of artists on Pinterest. If anything, if I come across one on Pinterest, I'm going to their Instagram to like look at the rest of their work.
I think the fact that you're also consuming on Instagram probably helps with that too, because you're community driven too. Like you're a part of this community. You also are a freelance artist. Like you're kind of seeing your friends' work and being like, oh, I think they'd be cool for this. And it's good to know that you're not like, oh, this is an immediate hire. But like, remember, because a lot of people I think get frustrated. They're like, I've been posting this book series where I've redrawn covers. I've drawn 4 of them and nobody has done anything. Nothing's gone viral. And it's like, Well, actually, Casey Moses saved that. And when she gets a
I
book,
saved it.
Right. Like she could call you because she saved something you did. Do not just do 4 and be done. Keep showing the work that you want to get hired for. It sounds like what you're saying is it doesn't need to be a book cover. It can just be showing your illustration style and you'll be like, oh, that would be perfect for a book cover. So
yeah, I have like little folders of everything. It's like characters, typography. I have a folder that's like, this would make a really cool end paper. We don't get to do illustrated end papers, but people who do like the really awesome seamless patterns and stuff, like even that maybe wouldn't be right for a young adult book cover. It's beautiful. I'm saving it. You're super talented.
Why don't you do end pages?
Okay, so it's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anything that's like, you know, if a book has like foil on it or like a spot gloss or a soft touch or like a really gorgeous foil stamp on the case, like all of those things cost money. And as much as I would love to do them for every book, the decision makers above me don't always approve it.
Yeah, I would bet more often than not. And I think also publishing has like, and I'm going to assume that because you work for Penguin Random House, you can't share, you know, you're not a freelance artist telling us how much you got paid for something. But the publishing world, I think people have these expectations of it to be like the most lucrative to design a book cover. And in Katie and my experience, it is not.
No.
It is.
And they have like, really set budgets too. It's not like as flexible as other industries.
Yeah, I think publishing is like very unclear and people have this idea that it's going to be really crazy. But from your experience, would you agree that it's not?
It's not. You're totally right. People think that, but especially like in the last couple years, the cost of making the books has gone up so much, which is all like not to say like ask for more, always negotiate fees. There's never been a situation where somebody's come back to me and asked for like more money that I've been like, how dare you? I would never, like, that's a normal thing to do. But it's not as much as people would think. It's definitely not like advertising money for sure.
So you're not gonna say to someone if they say, actually, do you have room in the budget for more? You're not gonna be like, just kidding, you're fired. You're just gonna be like, we don't have room.
No, if anything, I've been in situations too where it's like, if we like really want to work with somebody, sometimes I have been able to get more money approved. Or we've done something like, okay, instead of doing like a full jacket wrap, can you just do the front cover for, you know, like you go back and forth. It's like, okay, well, what can you do in this budget? I always want to try to make it work if we can, because it's like, I reached out to an artist because I think they're the best person for the project and we want to work with you. We want to work it out.
Why do you think the budget, I mean, I know you just said that manufacturing is really expensive now. Why do you think that the cover, which we said right at the beginning, is the thing that makes people get something off of a shelf? Why do you think there's not enough value placed on that? Because like we know that it is a huge piece of it, but like the industry doesn't seem to know. And like that's not on you. The industry as a whole does not value the cost of a designer doing it, but we all know that it is a huge value add.
It's like any creative work, right? It's like the starving artist thing that it's like, no, that shouldn't be true, actually. The creative work is, I don't know how to explain it. It's
what do you have to say for your whole industry?
I know.
I know. I really like to pack a punch.
I wish. It's funny because especially like in my role, sometimes it's really hard to get things approved.
Yeah.
And it's so important. It's the consumer facing visual of the product. And everybody wants to weigh in on what that looks like.
So many cooks.
I wonder if part of it is also because the nature of publishing a book is like inherently risky, because even with pre-orders, like you do a book, Katie and I are coming out with a book in more than a year. So we have like a lot of time. And so we're getting paid in advance to work on this. The publisher is not going to see any return from that for like 2 years. And so there's risk involved. Every dollar that they spend, obviously we'll design our own cover, but every dollar that they spend is another added risk to not knowing, like, is this going to be a New York Times bestseller? They don't know. And so it's all calculated risk. And I think that's probably a big part of it, but it does kind of stink.
It almost seems like the artist should have like a royalty instead of a flat fee. So they can kind of ride along with the success or not of the book, you know?
Yeah, I've actually never heard of somebody getting royalties on a cover.
Yeah, no, me neither.
Unless we do a lot of like interior illustrations on books. But then it's also like you're getting paid so much more money than just
But those are royalties?
Picture books? Yes.
Okay.
Illustrated, not like I'm sure graphic novels. There are some novels that will have maybe 10 or 20 illustrations throughout. I'm unsure if there would be a royalty contract on that or if those
I'm picturing like the little Harry Potter beginning of the chapter spot graphics.
Yeah, something like that I think would probably be, I'm guessing flat fee, but I don't work on interior, so don't take my word.
Yeah. My friend, I could be wrong, but I think maybe it's split 50-50, but I think a lot of people who write graphic novels, you know what? I just decided I pulled this number out of my ass, but I originally thought people who wrote graphic novels were also the illustrators, because usually like someone who's into drawing comics ends up writing their own comics. And the people I know who are graphic novel authors are also the illustrators. And like it's the merging of those two passions for them. But now I'm thinking of the books I read with my son, and it is not always. So I don't know, but I think in that case,
I don't know. Like I don't know like I don't know the split on it, but like there are for sure author illustrators and then duos of authors and illustrators that collaborate on a project.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
A friend of mine actually sent me Apple Notes. What do you call it? Just like an Apple Notes.
Yeah, you can share notes.
And she was like, I just wrote this book. And I was like, oh my God, it's the sweetest thing ever.
She wrote it in Apple Notes?
Well, she sent it to me that way. Like she sent, it's a children's book. Like a
You mean like pages?
No,
I'm picturing like the tiny little note app. Like she sent you a whole book in
a picture book's like
5-minute
It's
read.
like 500 words probably.
Yeah.
Right?
It's super short. Yeah.
I'm just confused by this vessel, but it's not important.
Really,
you keep talking.
It's truly not. I shouldn't have even added that piece of it. But she sent it to me and she was like, she's probably gonna be mad at me for sharing this. Sorry, babe. She sent it to me and I was like crying. It was the sweetest book. I actually texted you, Casey, and I was like, my friend's gonna write this book. Anyway, she was like, I think you should illustrate it. And she sent me this picture. She was like, I did this as kind of like my mood board for it. And I was like, this is the cutest thing ever. You need to illustrate this entire book. She's like, I'm not an illustrator. I can't do that. And I
just did.
We just did it. It's sold. I'm buying it. And it is interesting though, because if she was to do a fully illustrated book, I mean, the room for profit and growth with if she was able to do it herself, not only like personal growth, if she was able to be like, I'm not an illustrator, to being like a published author and illustrator, but what a skill for an artist to become an author. And that's something that Katie and I have talked about a lot. And we did a summit last year or 2 years ago where we have the replays available and I'll link it in the show notes, but we interviewed all of these artists who became authors. And sure, you can go the route of wanting to design covers, but you can also write your own story. And I think that the unique thing there is that inherently, if you are a creative person, whether you're like a hand lettering artist or an illustrator, you are a creative thinker. And so you might have a book in you. And we were just talking to someone the other day who was like, oh, I did this project. I turned it into a book. Just that collection, like a lot of the work we do comes in these kind of vessels that could be a book. And it's pretty cool to see that overlap, or even just to see two creatives working together, which makes me think, do a lot of the illustrators that you hire end up getting to talk to the author, or do they work directly with you and never like have an interaction with the author?
All communication with the author usually goes from the editor. So even I don't really talk to authors. Here and there I have. So it's like the line of communication is like the author and their agent to the editor, to me, to the artist. So it's a lot of fielding feedback and then like figuring out next steps and going from there. But yeah, no, a lot of times, like even I'll talk to authors more on like Instagram here and there. We'll like message, and I'm sure like they talk to illustrators a lot of times to do a cover. And then a lot of authors will commission their own like fan art or something. If they wanted extra that like the publisher hadn't planned on doing, they'll reach out to artists and be like, oh, and can I also commission you to like draw this specific scene? And I'm going to give it away with anyone who pre-orders the book. And they'll like go to the artists themselves.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. As someone I've worked on a couple books doing lettering and some illustration. And because there are so many channels and hierarchy and so many cooks in the kitchen, I've never had a project seamlessly go from start to finish as originally planned. Like never. I mean, I haven't done that many book covers, but on every single one, they've either gotten delayed or canned or they changed the title on one of mine after I did all the initial sketches, and they were like, we changed the title and the concept for the cover, and I repitched another idea that I would still be involved in, and they were like, oh cool, yeah, let's do that. But they were originally gonna like hire somebody else. So yeah, it's always been a journey for me, just to share that so that people kind of understand how like up and down and volatile, like maybe some people have a wonderfully seamless experience, but I never have.
Even I've probably worked on like almost 100 book covers at this point. I like can't point to one that went like seamlessly start to finish.
Okay.
Like, this is the sketch, no revisions, final art approved. It's so many, especially if it's like a bigger publisher. There's so many people that weigh in. Yeah. And like I do my best to, you know, like advocate, like I always want the artist to do their work. I provide direction, but at the end of the day, like we're hiring this person who's really good at the thing that they do. Like, let's let them do it. You have a lot of people who aren't creatives weighing in on
looking
things.
At the bottom line.
Yeah, and it's also like part of it too. Like I'm in so many meetings where I'm presenting a cover and I never want to over explain what we did and why, because no reader is going to be in a bookstore looking at a cover and being like, I wonder why they went with this direction. And like a little message for me pops up and is like, here's why we chose this color palette.
It has to stand on its own. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but it is very frustrating at times. I will always try to like, if we have to pivot, a lot of times it's not like the art style or anything. It's like the title of the book changed or like some scene in the book changed because we're working so early. It's like the first draft of the book. So they're still at like the author and their editor are still editing the book. So like changes like that will come up too. But like I've definitely pivoted with artists before and like we were able to like get to a final cover. But I like always try to be as transparent as possible about like what is going on because the timelines are wild and there's a lot of meetings and I'm always like, thank you so much for your patience. I'm so sorry.
Do you feel like that maybe because you've been doing it long enough it doesn't, but does that stress you out or do you feel like it's part of the process and it's like at this point, you get it, you understand it's part of the process. It sounds like you're more worried about how the artist perceives it. But what about like you personally? Are you like, oh my gosh, this is so annoying? Or are you just sort of used to the tide?
I definitely feel like I've settled in. This is how it is. I try so hard not to like get hung up on something or like think so negatively. Like we always figure it out. There's always covers on these books. We get there eventually. Right. Some are more painful than others. But yeah, I think I've definitely like over the past, like when the first time I had to kill a cover, I was upset over it for weeks. It's part of it. Like projects get killed all the time. And, you know, here's your kill fee. We still pay you for the work that you did. I have been so devastated over some projects that like didn't work out the way I wanted.
Well, it's a good exercise in not being precious about your work and just getting
Sometimes
used
you just have to let go. Sometimes it just has to be done.
Yep.
Okay, well, I love all of this. I think that so many people in our community have dreamed, you know, this is definitely on their dream project list. So I really appreciate you sharing all the ins and outs. Before we wrap up, Katie, did you have something? I heard you breathe.
Well, sorry. Sorry. I just had one more question because we asked you how you find people, but if they're like, their dream is to be doing a lot of covers, like illustrating a lot of covers with art directors at different publishing houses, is there something that they can do that's more proactive than just posting their work online kind of randomly, hoping that somebody stumbles on it? Can they be finding these art directors, reaching out directly? Like, what do you suggest?
I get reached out to all the, like, I get cold emailed, cold DM'd all the time. And I always look at your art if you message me. I know a lot of other art directors and designers do that too. And I have like a little folder that I save things in. So even if like somebody doesn't respond to you, if you have like a listing that you're like sending out your work or like reaching out to people, I would say be prepared to do that or, you know, find a way in if you saw something they recently did and it's the kind of work you want to do. Don't just copy and paste something. Like if you make it more specific, then people are more likely to respond to you. But like reaching out never hurts. The worst anyone can ever do is ignore you or say no. But I know like a lot of people I work with like do the same thing as me. Like I'm always so excited when somebody reaches out and is like, I would love to work on a book cover. Here's my art. And then I save it. I save it to my little board. Or if it's like not something that would say work for young adult. Like a couple weeks ago, somebody reached out to me. I was like, you would be so perfect for a middle grade book. Passed it on to the team of designers that I work with that only work on middle grade books, and was like, you guys should check out this artist. So
that's really lovely.
Like, reaching out, just keep reaching out. I have ended up hiring people who reached out to me 3 years ago, and then the perfect project finally came up, and I was like, hey, I remember you sent me your samples. Do you want to work on this?
You said that the worst thing that could happen is that they ignore you, but actually Katie and I have had the worst thing happen. It felt like the worst thing.
Was someone mean?
No, we emailed someone like we wanted to partner with, and they were like, how the hell did you get my email?
I don't even remember who you're talking. Oh, like a sponsor situation.
Yeah, it was like a sponsor. We wanted to like do an Instagram feature with like a sponsored post.
That was not ideal.
He was literally like, how on earth did you get my email? This is my personal account.
Like, we internet sleuthed. I'm so sorry.
We literally just Googled, like, you could find anyone's info this day. It's actually creepy. And we felt so bad. We were like, we're so sorry. We found you on LinkedIn, and this was like the email.
Don't let it happen again.
And now we're like terrified to work with this person.
So my advice would be, if people have their contact info, my email is on my website. It's on my Instagram. That means I am open to receiving contact
Katie and I
from other people. Yeah.
And
that was also us asking for them to like work with us in like a sponsorship capacity. So I understand why they were more anti versus like just sharing your work with somebody. Don't be scared. Don't be scared.
That wasn't even so bad. Like, they weren't mean. I mean, it was.
How did you find this
kind of mean?
Should we share the whole story?
No, I mean, there's not much to it. We just hired somebody to help us find all the contacts because we wanted to reach out to, because we were spending a lot of our time doing that. And I guess the person found it in some weird place or something. I don't know. But he was not happy.
The same goes for us too. Like, when someone wants to get featured, if they DM us and they're like, hey, we'd love you to feature this. We're like, if you want to get featured, here's the best way. But I really do prefer that someone emails us. It feels more personal. And I prefer that they say something like, I saw your post, you featured this person, or I see that you feature someone every other day or whatever. I'd really love you to take a look at my work. And we'll always tell people, just in case anyone is wondering, like, just use the hashtag and tag us, and we're more likely to see it.
Or also say something funny to stand out. We like that too.
Well, that's a thing.
Be a human.
Like, no, it's so important to remember that behind like all these screens and everything, we're all people. And like, that's so important. And like the human connection, I feel like, especially like as technology and everything advances and everybody's working from home and stuff, that's so important. And I appreciate any little message that is just not some like copy and pasted, boring, like if
with
you,
the wrong
like,
name at the top.
Yes, exactly.
Or dear sir.
Thoughtful communication is, I would definitely recommend thoughtful
Great advice.
So if someone wants to just follow you and see what you're working on, where would they follow you on the socials?
Okay, so my Instagram is _the bookcase, like a pun on my name, which a lot of people don't get.
Oh my gosh, I just got it.
Did you just get it?
Are you kidding me? Ilana.
This is my favorite thing.
Don't worry. I got it.
God.
Did you get it?
Oh yeah. I can't believe Ilana.
I'm like, as red as
mind blown. I thought it was so clever. It's so clever.
The bookcase.
We'll put that in the show notes.
On TikTok, I'm just _Casey Moses, CaseyMoses.com.
I get that.
Those are kind of the only places I am on.
Oh, Ilana. It does take you a while to get puns, though, sometimes.
Well,
like the name,
like,
the proposed name of your book.
A book thing.
Your own book. Wasn't that the story, Ilana? Like, your publishers were like, ooh, what about Mind Your Business? And you were like, oh.
Like, oh. Yeah,
I feel like you did that with the Typecast or something too. You were like,
I did.
And then it took a little bit.
I thought like typography, and then wait, I can't even explain, like, because there's two ways you could look at it. One is like when someone is typecast, or you could look at it as like podcast typecast. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the podcast one.
We should just
scratch I thought podcast
because it's like broadcast, podcast, typecast.
Typecast.
Yeah. I'm glad we went down that path. Anyway.
Yeah. Alana's not great with puns. We figured it out.
Or idioms. I'm like, I'll say it and I'll be like, did I say it right? And then I just sound like an idiot.
An idiot. There was one that you had completely wrong the other day and it made me laugh so hard. I can't remember what it was.
I've done it a couple times.
Oh, what was it?
No, you were like, wait, did you just say bloody blah?
I know. I made so much fun of you. And then I instantly like told my husband that you thought it was that. I have to think about what it was. I think we captured it on one of our podcasts.
I think so too. What about like playing it by ear? Is it playing it by ear or year?
Ear. E-A-R.
Wouldn't playing it by ear.
What does that mean? I don't know.
Right. What does it mean playing it by ear?
It's a musical term. Like when you play it by ear, you're just figuring it out as you go and like trying
I've
to like.
I've never heard it used in a musical context. But now
well, some of us are just more gifted.
Gosh, this episode was,
okay, that's enough.
Unhinged.
That's
enough.
It.
We're good. Casey, I want to talk to you more. I love talking to you, and I'm so glad you could share more about your work.
Thank you.
And inspire some people who want to get into publishing. It's been great.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Oh, yay. Okay, all good.
If you want to work on books, you can, everybody.
That's a great way to end.
That's really cute.
You can do it.
You can.
Yay.
All right, bye.
Good luck, everybody. Bye.
Bye.